Time now for our KOLO Book Club. It is Native American History Month. So, of course, we have Jeff Scott here from the Washoe County Library to talk about some really interesting books that can kind of help us delve a little bit more into the Native American history and learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, I always love having cultural history months because it gives you an opportunity to learn more about the culture. But I think it's also fun to kind of engage in a lot of the artwork. So sometimes when you're looking at narrative nonfiction or looking at something that's just historical, it can be kind of dry. So I have some books today that are kind of have more of an interesting take on it. Some has contemporary indigenous art with poetry, and it has some science memoir. So science, it's a science aspect of it, bird watching memoir. So the first book I have is Birding While Indian. And so he's Thomas Cannon is part Lakota. And so he has 50 years of his sort of bird watching. So all the chapters are broken up to sort of his first observation of a bird. So it starts even when he was a small child and he was upset, a bad day at school, and he walks through the winter. There's basically 19 below zero in a light jacket, which is probably a bit of an exaggeration. But then he sees a common meadowlark. So he sees the green head of the duck, and it's not a mallard, it's something else because the neon green. And he thinks a new species, and he gets really excited about that. And so he has all these kind of fun stories when he was driving with his friend, and he wants to show him something, and it's a nighthawk that has a weird sound. So it sounds like the bird is breaking wind because it's part of the mating ritual. So they fly from a high distance and they go down, and when they stop at the last minute, it makes a breaking wind sound. So it's kind of humorous. And there's kind of humor in there with that as well. So it's fun. So it's really educational. It's really personal, and it has that great science memoir kind of thing. That's a really big trend right now. So it's really great.
And I think a lot of people will feel connected to us. I'm not going to lie, bird watching has become a joke thing around millennials right now. We're like, oh, now I'm starting our bird watching phase. So
right. It's very meditative. It's very meditative. Yes. It's really good stuff. So.
And then you have, this is about poems and history. Plus
so this is by Joseph Burchuk. It's Voices of the People. It's a great book. It's a book for children, but anyone could enjoy this. So you're looking for indigenous history. It has prominent indigenous members over the last 1,000 years. So you have people, and it has a poem about that person, and then it has artwork from contemporary artists. So it's a lovely book. This is a book like it's for children, but I would buy this book. I'm going to go out and buy this book for my coffee table because it's lovely.
Great coffee table book.
Yeah, it's great. And it has indigenous art. It has indigenous poetry. And you learn about history. So a lot of times books like this, you have sort of the encyclopedia entry, you have an image, and it's like, okay, that's nice, but you have like the birth, death, something significant. This kind of gives it poetry. And I think with history, a lot of times it'll tell you what happened, but the poetry or the fiction tells you how it felt. And I think this really book emphasizes that. So it's a lovely book. I would definitely buy a copy of this. I'm going to buy a copy of this. I was reading this, I'm like, this is amazing, because I saw this on the list, and I thought, oh, it's a children's book. It should be interesting to see. But like, wow, a really amazing book. So I definitely recommend that. He's written over 170 children's books on indigenous history. So definitely check out the author as well.
Okay. So one of my favorite ways to learn about history is through historical fiction and kind of things like that, because it pulls you in as a story. And this is a great option as well.
Yeah. So Council of Dolls by Mona Susan Power. So history of 4 generations of women throughout history for the Dakota. So Lakota. So it talks about their history from first contact with settlers, and also talks about times with Indian school and the attempt of stripping identity and then rediscovering that identity. So you kind of have almost 100 years of that history. And it's really great because it talks about the resilience and perseverance, and that sometimes that identity is lost, but then it's refound, and the new generation is really starting to really rebuild those roots to the history of indigenous people. So it's a great fiction book, really also kind of inspiring in that sense about learning about the history. And so, yeah, it's fun. It's fun fiction. Really meaningful stuff. So I love all the titles this month because it has a kind of unique spin on everything. You have some history, some poetry, you have some fiction. And that's kind of the books I really love to read for the month. So.
Wonderful. All right, Jeff, thank you so much. And of course, all of these books available now at the Washoe County Library, the closest one to you. And just make sure you can stay in, curl up with a good book this Thanksgiving, and learn a little bit about Native American history. Jeff?
Thanks for having me on the show.
We'll see you next month.
All right.
We'll be right back.
Curious about investing in crypto and not